Hello, and welcome to another lesson from Level Up Mathematics. In today's lesson, we will be exploring measurement conversions. Now, you've seen this in previous grades. You've had to convert from months to years, years to month, feet to inches, things like that. So today, we're going to be using unit rates to convert from one measurement system to another. Now, it's a very simple formula. You'll start with what you have, then you'll multiply by your unit rate, and then you'll get what you want to end up with. So let me show you an example of that. Let's suppose you were trying to convert 3 years into months. You would start with your unit rate, which is 1 year is equal to 12 months. Then you would multiply what you have, which is 3 years. That's what you were given. And then you're going to multiply by a unit rate. Well, how do you know which one goes on top? The years, the 1 year, or the 12 months? Well, you always go by this unit here. Whatever you start with, that has to go on the bottom of the fraction. So 1 year will go on the bottom, and 12 months will go on the top. Now, the reason the years went on the bottom is because now years will cancel with years, and we're left with 3 times 12 months, which is 36 months. So 3 years is equivalent to 36 months. Let's look at example 1. Cameron measured an apple tree to be 14 feet. How tall is the tree in inches? So we were given feet and we're going to inches. So you need your unit rate. Now, the unit rate will either be given to you or you can find it off your formula chart. So looking at my formula chart, I want to go from feet to inches. So I would use this unit rate here. 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So let me go back and write down my unit rate, which was 1 foot is equivalent to 12 inches. So that's where you always start. You always start with your unit rate, all right? Now, we're going to use this formula at the top of the page. It says start with what you have. Well, we were given 14 feet. Then you're going to multiply by your unit rate. So I want you to notice that we were given feet, so feet must go in the denominator. And the 12 inches in this case would go in the numerator, okay? And that's going to give us what we want to end up with. So the feet will cancel with the feet, and we're left with 14 times 12 inches. So let me just multiply that real quick over here. 4 times 2 is 8. 2, put the 0, 4, 1, 8, 6, 1. So that would be 14 feet would give me 168 inches. All right, example 3. At a track and field event, Marissa ran a race that was 1,600 yards long. How far did Marissa run in feet? So in this problem, we're going from yards to feet. So again, I always want to start with my unit rate. So to find my unit rate, I'm going to go to my formula chart, and I want something that compares yards with feet. So there's my unit rate. 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So I'll abbreviate yard YD. 1 yard equals 3 feet. All right. Now, again, you start with what you have. We were given 1,600 yards. Then I'm going to multiply by my unit rate. Now, to know which one goes in the denominator, whatever units I have here has to be the units of my denominator. So 1 yard would go in my denominator. 3 feet would go in my numerator. Now when I multiply that, the yards would cancel with my yards, and I would be left with 1,600 times 3 feet. Well, I know that 16 times 3 is 48, so 1,600 times 3 would be 4,800 feet. Example 3. Terry ran 8 kilometers. 1 mile is approximately equal to 1.6 kilometers. How far did Terry run in miles? So let's write down our unit rate. 1 mile is equal to 1.6 kilometers. All right, so start with what you're given, 8 kilometers, and we're going to multiply it by our unit rate. To know what goes in the denominator, I highlight this. It's kilometers. So kilometers must go in my denominator, and the 1 mile must go in my numerator. So kilometers would cancel with kilometers, and I would be left with 8 times 1 is 8 miles over 1.6. Whoops, I'm sorry, the kilometers, those eliminated. So it's just 8 miles divided by 1.6. Now remember, in division, your divisor can never be a decimal. So I want to move the decimal over one place to the right. But if I do that to the bottom, I have to do it to the top. So this would be equivalent to 80 miles divided by 16. All right, so 16 goes into 80. Let me do a little ratio table over here. 1, if I double that, I get 32. If I double that again, I get 64. If I double that again, I'll have too much because I want 80. What if I added the 4 and the 1? That would give me 5. And added the 16 and 64. That would be 7. Oh, that would give me 80. So I know 16 will go into 85 times. So this would be 5 miles. So 8 kilometers is equivalent to 5 miles, approximately. All right. Example 4. A scientist used 786 milliliters of a liquid for an experiment. How many liters of the liquid did the scientist use of the experiment? So here we're comparing milliliters to liters. So let's find our unit rate. Milliliters. There it is. 1 liter is is equal to 1,000 milliliters. So let me write that down. 1 liter is equal to 1,000 milliliters. All right, so again, we'll start with what we have, 786 milliliters. You'll multiply by the unit rate. Well, how do you know which one goes on top, which one goes on bottom? If this is milliliters, then the denominator must also be milliliters. So 1 liter goes on the top. So this will cancel with this, and I'm left with 786 times 1, which is 786 liters divided by 1,000. Now, if I'm dividing by 10, 100, or 1,000, I never use long division, because when we divide by 1,000, that means all you do is move your decimal in 1, 2, 3 places to the left. So this would be 0.786 liters. All right, problem 5. A can contains 24 ounces of fruit juice. How many pints of fruit juice does the can contain? So we were given ounces, and we want to know how many pints is that. So let's go back and find our unit rates. Well, I'm going to need 2 on this one. I know that 1 cup is equal to 8 ounces. And 1 pint is equal to 2 cups. So let me write that down. 1 cup equals 8 ounces. And 1 pint is equal to 2 cups. All right, so let's start with our 24 ounces. 24 ounces. And we're going to multiply by a unit rate. And the only unit rate that had ounces in it was the first one. So I'll put the 8 ounces here and the 1 cup on the top. So ounces will cancel with ounces. So what I end up with is 24 times 1 is 24 cups divided by 8, which would give me 3 cups. All right, now I want to convert 3 cups to pints. So I'm starting with 3 cups, and I'll use my second unit rate, and I'll put 2 cups on the bottom and 1 pint on the top. So when I cancel out the cups, I'm left with 3 times 1 is 3 pints divided by 2. And 3 divided by 2 is 1.5 pints. All right, example 6. Alexa is making a recipe that calls for 56 ounces of ground beef. How many pounds of ground beef does Alexa need? So we're going from ounces to pounds. So I want to go back to my formula chart and find my unit rate. Ounces to pounds. All right, here it is. 1 pound is equal to 16 ounces. So that's the unit rate I'm going to write down. 1 pound is equal to 16 ounces. All right. Now start with what you have. Whoops, I forgot to write down the units. The units are so important in these problems. Let's see, 56. I started with 56 ounces. Then I'll multiply by my unit rate. So 1 pound over 16 ounces. All right, I'll cancel the ounces, and I'm left with 56 times 1 is 56 pounds over 16. So I want to see how many times will 16 go into 56. Well, I know 16 times 3 is 48. Let me add a 0 here. Let's see if I subtract that. That would be 8 and bring down the 0. I know 16 will go into 85 times. So this would be 3.5 pounds of hamburger. All right, example 7. A robot's height is 1 meter, 20 centimeters. How tall is the robot in millimeters? So what we want to do is we want to convert this expression into centimeters. 1 meter, 20 centimeters. So if I go back up and look at my formula chart, I know that 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. So 1 meter is 100 centimeters. So I also have an additional centimeters. So I know I've been given 120 centimeters, and they want to know how tall is the robot in millimeters. How tall is the robot in millimeters? So I need a unit right here, and I'm going to use this one. 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters. 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters. So let me write that down. 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters. All right, so now take what you're given, 120 centimeters, and I want you to finish this problem on your own. Pause the video, and when you're finished, press play to come back and check your answers. All right, welcome back. I put the centimeter, 1 centimeter on the bottom. I put the 10 millimeters on the top. I canceled the centimeters. And then on the top, I had to multiply 120 times 10, which would be 1,200 millimeters. And that concludes today's lesson, Measurement Convergence.